Hello guys, in this tutorial I'm going to speak about Bend Modifier, which you can find it from the modify panel and in the modify list. And because we don't have any object and we didn't select any object, it's not visible. So let's create a box. Press F4 to see the edges. Now go to the modify panel and go to the modifier list and choose Bend. Okay, by selecting Bend, we have a few options here. We have angle and we have direction and we have limit effects and axis. Okay, so let's adjust the angle, and as we see, it's not working quite nicely and it's not what we want. Let's change the angle and see what happens. It's not exactly what we want. Let's change the axis. It's not again. And the reason for this is we don't have enough segments. For instance, when I started learning Max in early days, I always wondered that why we need these segments here, because it doesn't affect the view of our object. For instance, if we have a box and if we increase the length segments or the height segments, it's basically do nothing to our object. It just increase the polygon count and does nothing else. So let's make it 5, and I'm gonna explain you why the segments are important. So let's change it to 5 and go back to the bend. And now let's adjust the angle. So let's go back and make 5, 5, 5. Okay. And go back to the bend. Now let's adjust the angle. And as you see, it bends just like we want. And the reason it wasn't bending before, it didn't have the segments, enough segments to bend. And that's why segments comes handy. For instance, let's change the angle, change the axis, and as you see, because we have segments, it looks nice. And now let's press Z. Now it bends just like it should bend. Okay. But if we want it to bend like this, we need to change the direction. And the direction is basically this, like this. Because if we make exactly -90, it will work just like we want. But as you see, when we bend too much, it's like hexagon, and that's why we need more segments. So go back to the box, increase the height segments, and as you see, while we're increasing, it gets smoother and smoother. Okay, now let's go back to the bend and make sure it's 600 and 360. Basically, it converts our box to the cylinder. And as you see, and the reason it bends from here is because our object's pivot is here. So it considers the pivot as a center for bending. For instance, if we want our object to bend from the center, we need to move our pivot to the center. So let's delete this bend and go to hierarchy panel, press affect pivot only, and press move button and move our pivot to the center, or just press the center to object button to make it automatically go to the center of the object. Now let's turn this button off, go to the modifier panel and choose bend. Okay, and now let's try to bend, and as you see, it bends from the center. Now let's change the direction to 90, and as you see, before it bended from here, and now it bends from the center, because our objects pivot is in the center. But we can change the center of this bend from this Bend Modifier tool. By doing this, we need to click to the center and move it to where we want, and now go back to the bend and adjust angle, and as you see, now we bend our object from the top, and we can adjust the gizmo here. If we move our gizmo down, let's see what's gonna happen, and it's basically moves from the center again, because the gizmo itself starts here. We can scale it down, and now we're gonna have different result. As you see, we can do it like this, but it's basically the scaling the gizmo affects our object differently. So it's better not to scale, and you can rotate and to achieve different. And as you see, if you rotate your gizmo, you're gonna achieve different results. Let's decrease it like this. So if you know what you're doing, you can achieve nice results with moving your gizmo by hand, but until you learn what you want to achieve or what you're doing, it's a good idea not to mess with this gizmo, because it can result unnecessary or unwanted results. So it's basically, let's go back and make sure that our gizmo exactly the size of our object, so that the result of this bending is something that we can expect, or at least we can predict. So this is basically how bend works. Now let's see the limit effect and what it helps you to achieve. So it's 0, and let's basically help your object, some parts of the object go without bending. It's like some parts of the object are not bending, it's not bending. As you see, if we decrease or increase, you can see that only the upper part are bending and this part are still standing still. Or maybe we just make it 0. We can increase it or increase it like this, and now let's see, it happens to be a different result. Okay, this is enough. I hope you understand what the Bend modifier does to your objects, and see you on the next tutorial. Bye.